Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our Dracula Read Along. I am your host, Monica Van Fleet. I am an independent writer and researcher based out of Philadelphia. Today, we are going to discuss Chapter 3. When we meet back up with Jonathan in Chapter 3, it is still May 8th. Jonathan has realized that he is a prisoner in Castle Dracula, and he runs around a little crazy, trying all the doors until he realizes that he truly is helpless. Then he sits down to have a think, and he says that he's still thinking when he hears the great door open and Count Dracula returns to the castle. Jonathan is in the library, and so he sneaks back to his own room where he finds the Count making his bed. And this is a bit of an awkward moment, but it confirms to Jonathan there are no servants in the house, which helps Jonathan realize there are no servants. That means that the coach driver must have also been Count Dracula. And what does that mean then that he could control the wolves with just a gesture of his hand? This is also where Jonathan realizes this is why the other passengers were so afraid for him and had given him the gifts of the wild rose, the mountain ash, and garlic. Jonathan also mentions the crucifix that the landlady had given him, and he says, "Bless that good woman who hung the crucifix around my neck, for it is a comfort and a strength to me whenever I touch it." Jonathan decides that he is going to have a conversation with the Count and see if he can get him talking about himself. His strategy works, and we get towards the end of the page on page 37 of the Norton Critical Edition, what I like to call the right to be proud speech. This is where a lot of people get the idea that the historic ruler Vlad the Impaler and Count Dracula are literally the same person. But what is important to remember is that this is Jonathan attempting to retell what the Count said. This speech is mostly fiction. It has some pretty exciting details that are based in history, but all of the details where they talk about the actual name Dracula, they're speaking of Dracula as a title rather than the actual name of an individual. And the Count doesn't specify that it is him. He's using the royal we. So it is not clear at all, because he's talking about the glory of his race and his house, whether he was actually at these battles and these achievements, or if he's just speaking of his house. And once again, we don't actually know what Count Dracula said because we are reading Jonathan's interpretation of what Count Dracula said. Jonathan's next entry is on May 12th. This is one of the first times where it should be noted there are days missing in between Jonathan's last entry. He recounts a conversation that he had with Dracula about lawyers and if a man can have multiple lawyers. Jonathan's reflection on this conversation isn't suspicion, it's admiration, and he even remarks the Count would have made a remarkable solicitor himself. After their legal conversation, Dracula warns Jonathan that if he should leave these rooms, that he shouldn't go to sleep in any other part of the castle. On page 42 of the Norton Critical Edition, Dracula says there are bad dreams for those who sleep unwisely, and he should be warned that should sleep now or ever come over you, or be like to do, then haste to your own chambers or to these rooms, for your rest will be then safe. But if you be not careful in this respect, then he finished this speech in a gruesome way, for he motioned with his hands as if he were washing them. This is something to pay attention to, this washing of the hands. This is evoking Pontius Pilate or Lady Macbeth. He bears no responsibility for Jonathan's safety should he sleep elsewhere in the house. Under the pretense of their business relationship, the Count tells Jonathan that he needs him to stay for another month. When Jonathan says, "Oh, you wish me to stay so long?" he's a little bit nervous about that. The Count says, "I desire it much, nay, I will take no refusal. When your master employer, what you will, engaged that someone should come on his behalf, it was understood that my needs only were to be consulted." He's making this pretense of his business relationship, but Jonathan knows that he is a prisoner, and he even comments that he knows that the Count knows that he is a prisoner, so he can see through the gleam in the Count's eyes that if he wants to, he can force Jonathan, but they are going to maintain this pretense of civility. Dracula asks Jonathan to write letters to his employer as well as to his fiancée Mina to confirm his whereabouts and let them know where he will be and that he is safe, and he asks him for these letters to be dated in the future. Later, on the morning of the 16th, Jonathan sits down to write in his journal again, and it's immediately apparent that he is very concerned. He says that safety and the assurances of safety are things of the past. and that while he continues to live on here, there's only one thing to hope for, and that's that he doesn't go mad if he is not mad already. Then he says that he thinks about this hateful place, but now the Count is actually the least dreadful thing to him because the Count alone can assure his safety. Jonathan makes a reference to Hamlet where he says, "My tablets, quick, my tablets." He says that he's going to try to calm himself by recording all that has happened in as accurate of detail as he can. He said that after he'd written in his diary, he felt sleepy, and that the Count's warning came into his mind to not sleep elsewhere in the castle, but he took a pleasure in disobeying it. He pulls over a couch where he can look out and see the moonlight, and he falls asleep. This is one of the set piece scenes in the novel Dracula. If you talk about scenes that are remembered, this scene is frequently among the first that gets mentioned, because all of a sudden Jonathan realized that he was not alone. The room looked the same. It was unchanged in any way. He could see across the floor his own footsteps in the dust, but in this beam of moonlight in front of him are standing 3 young women. He says that they are ladies by their manner and dress. He mentions that 2 of them have a similar coloring and the high aquiline nose like the Count, and the third is as fair could be. Jonathan says that she has great wavy masses of golden hair and eyes like pale sapphires. The Count's relationship to these 3 women isn't specified. We assume because of pop culture that they are his brides, but it could be that they are brides, it could be that 2 of them are his daughters. One way or the other, we don't know what their exact relationship to the Count is, but Jonathan remarks all 3 had white teeth that shone like pearls against the ruby of their voluptuous lips. And voluptuous is a word to pay attention to in the text of Dracula. Stoker only uses it in relation to women after they have been tainted by the evil of vampirism. So in the chapters where it gets used with the vampire ladies, it gets used a lot. Jonathan says that there's something about the women that make him uneasy, some longing and at the same time some deadly fear. He says that he felt in his heart a wicked burning desire that they would kiss him with those red lips. He says that they were whispering together and they seem to be encouraging each other on, and one of them says to the fair-haired girl she should go first, that hers is the right to begin, and another says that he's young and strong, so there are kisses for all of us. Jonathan lay quietly, pretending to be asleep. He says that he's looking out from underneath his lashes. The fair girl advances towards him and bends over him until he can feel the movement of her breath upon him. The fair girl goes onto her knees and bends over Jonathan, fairly gloating. He says that there's a deliberate voluptuousness which is both thrilling and repulsive. And as she arched her neck, she actually licked her lips like an animal, till I could see in the moonlight the moisture shining on the scarlet lips and on the red tongue as it lapped the white, sharp teeth. She doesn't kiss Jonathan on the mouth, though. It says, "Lower and lower went her head as the lips went below the range of my mouth and chin and seemed to fasten on my throat." And then she pauses, and Jonathan can feel the pressure of her sharp teeth against his throat. He says that it feels as the tingling of one's flesh does when the hand that is to tickle it approaches nearer and nearer. I could feel the soft shivering touch of the lips on the super sensitive skin of my throat, and the hard dents of 2 sharp teeth just touching and pausing there. I closed my eyes as if in a languorous ecstasy and waited with beating heart. At that instant, another sensation sweeps through Jonathan as quick as lightning, and he becomes aware of the presence of the Count. But the Count as if being lapped in a storm of fury. His eyes open involuntarily, and he sees the Count grab the woman by the back of her neck, and his eyes were positively blazing. The red light in them was lurid, as if the flames of hellfire blazed behind them. His face was deathly pale, and the lines of it were like hard drawn wires. The thick eyebrows that met over the nose now seemed like a heaving bar of white hot metal. With a fierce sweep of his arm, he hurled the woman from him, and then motioned to the others as though he were beating them back. It was the same imperious gesture that I had seen used to the wolves, in a voice which, though low and almost in a whisper, seemed to cut through the air and then ring round the room. He said, "How dare you touch him, any of you? How dare you cast eyes on him when I had forbidden it? Back, I tell you all. This man belongs to me. Beware how you meddle with him, or you'll have me to deal with." Then the fair girl laughs and tells Count Dracula, "You have never loved." And the other women join in laughing, and the Count turns and looks at Jonathan's face attentively and says in a soft whisper, "Yes, I too can love. You yourselves can tell it from the past, is it not so?" So from this, we know that the women have at least seen Dracula in love before. Then the women protest, saying, "Are we to have nothing tonight?" And Dracula produces a bag that appears to have a child in it. One must assume from the local village that Dracula has kidnapped. And Dracula gives the bag to the women and they disappear. The women closed round whilst I was aghast with horror, but as I looked, they disappeared, and with them the dreadful bag. There was no door near them, and they could not have passed me without my noticing. They simply seemed to fade into the rays of the moonlight and pass out through the window, or I could see outside the dim, shadowy forms for a moment before they faded entirely away. Then horror overcame me, and I sank down in unconsciousness. This is noteworthy because throughout the first 4 chapters of the book, Jonathan is acting within the role of the traditional Gothic heroine. This is a role reversal from how it is traditionally portrayed, where a young woman is being held captive and she might run around becoming hysterical, running from door to door. And when she is in such great danger and she's left helpless, she even faints to remove herself from the direct danger that she is experiencing. We think today of the Gothic heroine as being a passive character that is not showing strong independence and an initiative to remove herself from a dangerous situation. But the Gothic heroine was subversive. She was dangerous. She disrupted the status quo. Before the Gothic heroine in novels, we pretty much only had the sympathetic heroine or the damsel in distress, where these women are really being defined by their domestic roles. The Gothic heroine is the first that really subverts that expectation. And in Dracula, we have this subversion again because, particularly in these first 4 chapters, it's Jonathan that's playing that role. This is the Victorian era, however, so these are not masculine ideals. So what we are seeing is Jonathan in crisis. And this time where he is a prisoner, where he is made to be the victim, is something we will see echoes of throughout the rest of the book. It's part of what makes the character of Jonathan Harker so interesting, because after he escapes, we'll see him continually through the rest of the novel understanding what it means for him to get vengeance on Dracula for making him feel a victim. And that is the end of chapter 3. In chapter 4, we come to the stunning conclusion of Jonathan's imprisonment in Castle Dracula. Our Substack article is going to dive into the significance of this scene to Bram Stoker and how he planned it as he was developing his novel.